All right, let's just jump right in because so much has happened since the last time we talked, Bob. It defies belief how much has happened. We see MF Global ignoring all measures of rule of law, stealing from people's accounts. Ironically, Gerald Celente somehow got himself involved in that. His money is missing, over $100,000. He won't say exactly how much. The head of the operation, John Corzine, is a former Goldman Sachs creature. We see Goldman Sachs creatures in key positions of power now in Greece and Italy as the euro melts down. It's just Goldman Sachs, Goldman Sachs, Goldman Sachs under every rock. And if you dig under those rocks and dig under the Goldman Sachs people, you'll probably find Rockefellers and Rothschilds. But what is going on? Where do you even want to start?
The Celente affair, he obviously has lost money. People have to understand that the rules for the commodity markets are much different than they are for the stocks and stock market. The commodity market gives you a contract that's not worth the paper it's written on. And in the final analysis, the commodity company, in this case MF Global, and CME, which runs COMEX, and COMEX itself, can change the rules anytime they feel like it. One of my spies on the East Coast, who's been the best of the best, who gave me Bernie Madoff three weeks before he got taken down, and I had it in my publication, he said Daley was involved too. He's the financial advisor to the president formerly with J.P. Morgan Chase. He quit last week. I've also been told by him that the SEC and the CFTC were involved. They knew exactly what was going on, and that's Barry Shapiro and Gary Gensler. And Gary Gensler not only worked under Corzine at Goldman Sachs, but he also was his assistant when he was a senator. And so there's a lot of incestuousness here. Whether it means anything in the final analysis remains to be seen, but there's a fire going there, and we want to know whether it's going to become a conflagration.
You know, on that Gary Gensler point, he came out the other day and said that this is an isolated incident, which is in, polar opposite to Bart Chilton's take on it, which is he thinks there might be much more to the story and that criminal activity took place. So two opposing schools of thought, both at the CFTC. More of the same. J.P. Morgan can do what they want. They have carte blanche to do whatever they want to the silver market, and the CFTC is now sidelined, having to concentrate on MF Global. Their responsibility would have been to catch this before this, disaster happened.
On that count, I agree with Barnhart. They were in on it. I mean, I know that from good sources.
The CFTC?
The question, yeah, the CFTC and Gensler, and so isn't the SEC. And so, what is the extent of their being involved with it? I don't know yet. And will everybody get their money back? Maybe. So, it's just up in the air. I can understand why Gerald went out and told everybody that he had an account and he had lost his money. He's a public figure like you and I are, and people listen to that because he is a communication network which goes to lots of people. I'm sure there's another 25,500 out there that would like to say the same thing that he did because they're disturbed that they did not had their accounts taken away. And so I think before we can start punching at this thing, we've laid out the groundwork. We got to wait for more information. Will we be lied to? Absolutely. So you're going to have sources other than what normally available. Barnard obviously has some. It doesn't seem like Zero Hedge does. And my person, I think will come up with the answers. He's right in the middle of it.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. It seems to me that, John Corzine is probably not a stupid man. I don't know him. I think he's a criminal. Don't get me wrong. But does this make any sense to you that a company that had been around for decades and decades could have been run into the ground by somebody who is as well connected as John Corzine is? Is there a piece of you that thinks that this might be something bigger? Is there a piece of you that thinks this could have been some sort of deliberate takedown?
Yes. I said from the very first article I wrote on it, the whole thing stinks. There's more to it. They're going someplace else with this. Corzine's connected. He wouldn't be on the wrong side of that market because all he has to do is pick up the phone and call people in Washington. And so, with that said, he would never have done what he's done unless he was deliberately trying to wreck the company. And I think that that's what happened. Why would he do that? Oh, maybe his friends at Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan Chase, who he was also very close to, maybe they'd like to buy it for 10 cents on the dollar.
Let's talk about Europe. We've seen some earth-shaking news coming out of Italy. I guess everyone's expecting Germany to bail out the Eurozone, but the Germans certainly want no part of that. What's the reality? We're hearing many pundits say that it is beyond repair. There is no plan B. The euro is basically a dead duck.
It was doomed from the very beginning. I won't go into the background because we don't have time. But the point is this. What they have decided to do is two things. Number one, they're going to cut those 6 countries loose. They're going to let them go bankrupt. And they have come to the conclusion, and I discussed this with the German government 2 years ago. I said, it's going to cost you $4 trillion to bail out these 6 countries. And they said, no, it'll cost $1 trillion. Well, I changed my projection to $4 to $6 trillion 2 months ago, and they changed theirs to $3.5 trillion. Let's say it's $4 trillion. They can't pay it. Nobody can. It wouldn't matter who it was. They've all got to go under. Now, are they going to let them go all together and cause mayhem, or are they going to do it one at a time? They're going to do it one at a time. The Greece will come first. They get a perfect excuse. There's riots going on in the streets, et cetera, et cetera. That'll be followed probably by either Portugal or Ireland in some order, and then Italy or Spain. And then Belgium will tag along, and they're going to try to make the euro work, let's say, with 8 or 10 countries. Now, what they're doing right now, and none of this is really public knowledge because I don't think anybody's figured it out yet. But what they're going to do is there's a new thing called the ESM, and that is being set up and passed by the 27 nations in the EU. And that's going to serve as a point of bringing these nations together fiscally, individually. They're going to march in and run the finances of every country out of Liechtenstein. Now, that takes away those countries' sovereignty. Amid all this chaos that's going on in the markets, they're not letting a crisis go to waste. They're trying to really secretly ram this thing down people's throats.
Right.
People in Europe. And that's where that whole thing is going.
Right. Well, I mean, I'll back you up on that because we see Goldman Sachs with leaders in key positions now in both Italy and Greece. Certainly these guys are peppered throughout our own government. So it seems like Goldman Sachs kind of runs the world at this point.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got Mario Monti, Draghi, Papademos, and a host of others. I mean, I live there. Every one of these bureaucrats, technocrats, politicians are all one-worlders. They are bound and determined to have one world government in Europe, no matter what the cost. Because they say if we don't have it, we'll start killing each other again in another war. That's the excuse.
Well, that's the excuse, and the reality is once they have their one world government, we're all disarmed, they'll just start killing us, sadly. And you know, humanity is waking up. Speaking of humanity waking up, I've been meaning to tell you about a new documentary I just watched by a guy by the name of Foster Gamble. The documentary is called Thrive, and if you've not seen it, I think you'd really enjoy it. I should buy you a copy and send it to you. It's I thought it was brilliant. He really covers a wide variety of topics. Talks about new energy, suppressed energies. He talks about the banking oligarchy, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers specifically. It's just a really tremendous documentary because it's got a hopeful tone to it. Have you heard about this, Thrive?
I saw it this morning.
What'd you think?
Exactly what you did. It's terrific.
Yeah.
Grab it before you can't get it anymore.
Yeah.
They don't want stuff like that floating around.
Yeah.
I mean, Alex Jones can get away with it because Alex has a network and so on and so forth. But films like that don't have a network, and they try to suppress them.
Yeah, and here's the thing for people to know. Foster Gamble is a direct heir to the Procter & Gamble fortune, and he was groomed from a young age to be one of the establishment leaders, to be one of these oligarchical empire builders, and he chose a different path. And this documentary, lots of money was spent on it. It really is an extraordinary film, and I would highly recommend everybody go to thrive.com or whatever the website is, Google Thrive, and buy a DVD copy for $20 and share it.
That's why we're here, to let people know what's going on so they can access the best information available. We go out and we harvest every day the best things available and present them to you so you don't have to go do it yourself.
Hey guys, don't miss part 2 as we talk about paper assets versus physical, the fall of the New World Order, and the rise of Ron Paul.